Greetings. This is Doc Ock coming to you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central, right here in lovely Kent, Ohio. Today, we've got some special things for you by some of our favorite people, namely Sister Stajabu. Gonna be featuring one of her poems today. Stajabu. And but for the proverb of the day, let's go with this one right here. The one-eyed man thanks God only when he sees a man who is totally blind. The one-eyed man thanks God only when he sees a man who is totally blind. Now just think about the irony of that one, okay? Only when he sees a man who's totally blind. I like that one. That was a good one. And that's a proverb from the area, the country of Nigeria. I'm not sure which nationality, but one of the nationalities, the hundreds of nationalities in Nigeria, because, you know, Nigeria is a mixed bag. You got the Hausa, the Fula, you got the Yoruba, the Igbo, so many different nations. So they don't specify. I just know somebody in Nigeria. And then for the poem of the day, I told you we were coming with one of Stajabu's poems. That's Stajabu right over there and her daughter, V.S. Chochezi. Mudcloth, coming out the book, Mudcloth Roots. Mudcloth Roots. That's right. We're getting ready to get your mudcloth on. And for those of you who don't know what it is, you see they're wearing it, okay? Thanks to Stajabu, some in her hair right there, around her head. And then Chochezi's got a scarf on made out of mud cloth, and she's got one as well, plus looks like a vest. So mud cloth is a particular kind of cloth. It's particular designs and a method of making cloth, the actual cloth itself, and then dyeing the cloth with certain patterns that comes out of the area of Mali, okay, West Africa again. So we're going to return to our roots with a poem by Sister Stajabu, and this poem is entitled Pieces Lost, and is very near and dear to myself and other people of my generation. We think about these kind of things all the time. And I told you from the get-go that this is going to be like, this is going to be kind of off the cuff, okay? Unrehearsed through the universe. That's how we're doing it. So it's not all edited and scripted and all like that. I get up in the morning and I say, well, I know I'm going to read something from here and there. And then I just kind of put it together. And this poem spoke to me this morning. So now it's going to speak to you. Now, mind you, I haven't read the whole poem. So when I read it, it's going to be just as fresh for you as it is for me. Pieces lost. Look, I want my pieces back because I need them now that I'm getting old. I could do something bold with all those pieces of me that got cut away, pulled off, combed out, broke off, the finger and toenail clippings my mom made me flush. Less some voodoo. Ooh, Stajabu, that's what I'm talking about. Let some voodoo woman use them to work some roots on me, hushed me as she pulled clumps of hair out with that small tooth comb, trying to tame my nappy and make me look like Shirley Temple. Each torture session ending with the stench of my pulled out hair burning in an ashtray so the birds wouldn't build a nest with it and give me headaches the rest of my life. You hear me talking to you? Or do you hear Stajabu talking to us? It's hard to tell because apparently we think alike. I could be so much bigger, larger, fuller, stronger, more confident, and really full of myself if I had all of myself, all those pieces lost, tossed, flushed, and burned. And where the hell are all the pieces of my pride, self-esteem, and self-respect that got shattered and splattered? when I was raped, terrified, abused, lied to, and accused by people who said they cared? And can somebody tell me where my faith, hope, and charity have gone? I need all the lost pieces. I need all the lost pieces of my heart to make me strong enough to deal with all the mess going on, like the Gulf oil disaster, the financial meltdown disaster, the bombing of the Move family disaster, the death penalty, Mumia Abu-Jamal, Leonard Peltier, political prisoners, and global warming, and Trayvon Martin disasters. Where are all the pieces of my mind that went this way and that and got lost once or twice and somehow never really quite made it back where it belonged? I want the hair from under my arms I had to keep shaved for years to look like a lady, and skin off my chapped lips, the bunions cut off my toes. Want my teeth back the dentist pulled before I learned to brush my teeth right. I want the tears I cried over everything. I want the sleep from out of my eyes and the wax from my ears gone. Who knows where? I want all the cells, cuticles, itsy bitsy, teensy weensy pieces of me back here right now to make me big enough and fierce enough to take on this crazy, rotten system. In a nutshell, it's the Jabu, one of the straight out scribes. Man, that sister bad. That sister, both of them sisters bad, but I'm just saying though. That's why we're featuring them here on Doc Ock at noon and 9. That's why we're featuring them here. Okay? Because they got it going on like that. Ahmed Baba. We're returning to the essay we started yesterday called Reclaiming the Lost African Heritage. You remember I told you yesterday that Bill Cosby did a documentary back in the day called Black History, Lost, Stolen, or Strayed. So that's what John Henrik Clarke is referring to here. Some of that history that's been lost, quote unquote, air quotes on you. Ahmed Baba, one of the greatest scholars of this period, talking about in West Africa, the period of African excellence and what do you call it? High intellectualism and philosophizing. Okay. Ahmed Baba, one of the greatest scholars of this period, stands out as a brilliant example of the sweep of Sudanese erudition, and author of more than 40 books on such diverse themes as theology, astronomy, ethnography, and biography. Baba was a scholar of great depth and inspiration. He was in Timbuktu when it was invaded by the Moroccans in 1592 and protested against their occupation. His collection of 1,600 books, one of the richest libraries of his day, was lost during his expatriation from Timbuktu. Ahmed Baba, although the most conspicuous, was only one of the great scholars of the Western Sudan. That's West Africa. Well, it's kind of like Midwest Africa, because the Western Sudan is, well, that's that part on the west side, but the Sudan goes all the way from one side to the other of the continent. For those of you who don't know your geography. This is part of the African heritage that must be understood and reclaimed. In the second place, before the European colonial period, there were already established in Africa independent nations with a long and glorious history. In the 15th century, when the Portuguese established trading posts along the coast of West Africa, Sunni Ali, one of the greatest of Africa's empire builders, was ruling Songhai. Sunni Ali was followed to the throne by Muhammad Abu Bakr el-Ture, founder of the Askia dynasty of kings and later called Askia the Great. He came to power in 1493, 1 year after Colombo discovered America. During the reign of Askia the Great, the nations of West Africa enjoyed a standard of life which was equal to and often higher than that of other nations of the world. You hear me talking to you. By 1884, when the European powers with colonial aspirations in Africa sat down and agreed on a plan to divide and exploit the entire continent of Africa, the colonial period was well underway, and so was Africa's resistance to it. The British met with continued resistance in many quarters. In West Africa, the Ashanti and other tribal wars against British rule lasted from 1821 until the eve of the First World War. That's 1917 or so. In the Sudan, the Mahdi movement, founded and led by Muhammad Ahmed, cost the British some of their best officers and soldiers, the most famous being General Gordon. When the Mahdi died in 1885, the movement continued under the leadership of Abdullah Khalifa and Osman Digna, commander of the colorful Fuzzy Wuzzy warriors. Check out the Fuzzy Wuzzies, okay? Osman Digna was not captured and killed until 1928. In Somaliland, a Mohammedan religious reformer, Muhammad bin Abdullah, later called the Mad Mullah of Somaliland, rose up against British rule in 1899 and was not defeated until 1920. In South Africa, the Zulu Wars of Resistance lasted from the rise of Shaka in 1800 to the last Zulu Rebellion in Natal in 1906. Nor did the French find the Africans more submissive. Samari Touré, one of the last of the great Mandingo warriors, fought the French in West Africa for 17 years. He stood astride their path from Senegal to the Niger when the French were trying to extend their control to the source of this great river, then to Timbuktu. He was captured on September 29th, 1898 by an African scout in the French army while he was in the midst of his morning prayers. He died in exile 2 years later. The king of Dahomey, Glegle, and his son and successor, Behanzin Hasu Bowele, called the King Shark, opposed French rule in their country for over 50 years. Behanzin was defeated by the French mulatto general Alfred A. Dodds and died in exile in 1906. Thus, Africa came bleeding and fighting into the 20th century. Then a new type of leader emerged, a well-known Egyptian nationalist of Sudanese descent, Dus Muhammad Ali, editor of the anti-imperialist magazine African Times and Orient Review, extended the support of North African nationalism to the rest of the continent. From Morocco, the voices of El Hajj Thami al-Ghuli, the famous Pasha of Marrakesh, was heard. In West Africa, men like Kaisley Hayford, John Sarba, and Dr. J.E.K. Agri were preparing that area of Africa for eventual independence. From the French-dominated territories, Blaise Diagne, Rene Maran, Gratian Candice were heard. In East Africa and the Congo, Paul Bunda, Daoudi Chwa, king of Buganda, and Apollo Kagwa lifted their voices. In South Africa, a missionary educated native of Nyasaland founded the Industrial and Commercial Union. A few years after its formation, the union had a membership of nearly 300,000. Two able Bantu editors, John Tango Jabavu and Sol Platje, gave the founder of this union, Clements Cotterley, the support he needed to make the ICU the most powerful African trade union on the continent. The lives of these men and many others went into making the emergent Africa we know today. This too is part of our African heritage. It is both the responsibility and good fortune of Negro writers to learn that in this heritage, there is material for more books than they can write in 10 lifetimes. The African story is still untold. For the last 300 years, Africa and its people have been viewed mainly through European eyes, and for European reasons, the entire history of Africa will have to be literally rewritten, challenging and reversing the European concept that is singularly the responsibility of the Negro writer to proclaim and celebrate the fact that his people have in their ancestry rulers who expanded kingdoms into empires and built great and magnificent armies, scholars whose vision of life showed foresight and wisdom, and priests who told of gods that were strong and kind. The American Negro writer should pay particular attention to the Western Sudan, West Africa, his ancestral home. The personalities who influenced the rich and colorful history of Africa have been natural attractions for many writers. Material on the rise and fall of the magnificent Ashanti people and their inland kingdom that cast its warlike shadow over the Gold Coast, now Ghana, for over 200 years is staggering, yet no Negro writer in the Western world has seen fit to write a complete book on the Ashanti people. The life of the first great Ashanti king, Osei Tutu, can be retold by our writers in the form of biography, a historical novel, a grand opera, or an epic poem. This is a scant sampling of the rich material on African life still waiting for our attention. County Cullen's poem, Heritage, begins with the challenging question, what is Africa to me? Our writers must expand this question in order to give a more pertinent answer to the question, what is Africa to me? We must add, what is Africa to the Africans? And what is Africa to the world? And answering these questions, let us consider using as a guide the following lines from John W. Vandercook's book, Tom Tom. A race is like a man until it uses its own talents, takes pride in its own history, and loves its own memories. It can never fulfill itself completely, end quote. So the quote again, a race is like a man until it uses its own talents, takes pride in its own history, and loves its own memories. It can never fulfill itself completely. And I would take what John Henrik had to say there one step further. Guess what? Not only have we not written the history of West Africa, you haven't even written your history. We haven't even written our family history. We have continuously been going to the grave with very few of our stories put down into a manuscript, some kind of written form where our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren could access our story later. So if there's a story about us at all, it's been interpreted, reinterpreted, rewritten, revisualized, revised through someone else's eyes. So today, what I want you to do when you finish listening to this, when I finish with this particular live stream, you need to go to your computers, your Chromebook, whatever you got. If you don't have none of those, turn your recorder on. You got a record function on that iPhone you carrying around, that iPhone 15 or whatever the hell you got. You got a record button on there. Hit the record button and just tell your story. Okay? Record it. Because there's all kind of devices out there now where your story can be taken and turned into a printed form right from your recording. Okay? So in other words, we don't have an excuse for not having our stories written down. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. So let's get on it. Symphonic. I'm out. Peace out. This is Doc Ock signing off at noon and 9. I'll see you again this evening at 9 o'clock, and hopefully everything will be fine when I see you at 9. Until then, live life with a grin from your ear to your chin.